Welcome back to Bumblebee, a channel dedicated to history, geography, discovery, and above all else, entertainment. So let's learn how the people used to be entertained in today's video on the top 10 bizarre ancient celebrations that made history. Legendary party number 10 will be the Festival of Drunkenness. Some religions ban the consumption of alcohol outright, and those that don't tend to take a dim view of overindulgence anyways. But this wasn't always the case, because the unlimited, uninhibited worshippers of ancient times really knew how to party. The Festival of Drunkenness dates back to the 15th century BC and was an important religious celebration in Egyptian religion. The celebration comes from the story of the heavenly cow. So, after mankind betrays their creator, Ra, by belittling his age, he allows Hathor to rain hell upon them. However, she goes a little too far, so Ra has to think of a plan to stop her from killing everybody, and he lands on alcohol. Ra had 7,000 jars of beer made, which he dyed red to match that of human blood, and while Hathor slept, the god spilled the faux blood around her. So when she awakened, greedy in her bloodlust, Hathor drank all the beer until she was completely and utterly tanked. As anyone who's ever drunk one too many beers will know, plans have a habit of going out the window when the buzz kicks in, and so Ra is able to bring his calmed child back home. To celebrate this event, the Egyptians gathered on the 20th day of Thoth every year and consumed what was essentially all the beer in Egypt. The goal was to recreate the drunkenness of Hathor in thanks for it allowing their existence to carry on, including the passing out part. Since Hathor was also the goddess of love and fertility, Egyptians also saw this as a great chance to carry out large groups of adult activities in her name. All hail Hathor. Legendary party number 9 is the burning of Persepolis. Some of the world's greatest parties are to celebrate a major victory. It just so happens that this one also more than towed the lines of being a purge. This all starts in 480 BC when the great city of Athens is burned to the ground following the Persian Emperor Xerxes' defeat of the Greeks at the Battle of Persepolis. The cause of this said fire is debated to this day, as Persians state the city was burnt before they arrived. Maybe the Greeks set fire on purpose in order to deprive the Persians of supplies, or maybe Xerxes ordered the burning in a fit of rage after discovering everything worth looting was already gone. Either way, Greek propaganda said F the Persians for burning their great city. So when Alexander the Great became king, he decided to get some payback after he conquered the Achaemenid Persian Empire in 330 BC. The first order of business? Loot and burn their capital back. After battling for their lives at the gates, the Persians failed to keep the Macedonian soldiers out. These are the same soldiers who are far from home and have been fighting non-stop for 5 years. So Alexander was aware they needed to blow off some steam or he faced a mutiny. So he let them. In fact, he told his soldiers to do whatever they wanted to the city, and what followed was a party where Alexander's men butcher the local men, brutally violate and capture the women, loot everything that wasn't nailed down, and drink whatever they could find. At its culmination, a majorly drunk Alexander ordered the city's citadel and the treasures within be burnt. Persepolis was left looted, and its grand royal palace was torched to a crisp with only 40 stone pillars to show where it once stood. Legendary party number 8 is Admiral's cocktail party. Held in the garden of his convent garden home, this party upholds the English reputation for a good drink. A very good drink. Admiral Edward Russell in 1664 decided to become famous. Parties were a good way to do this back then. Hire a lady with a crystal ball, find some mummies to unwrap, watch an exorcism. It's Victorian England, have some fun with it. But Russell decided the best way to show off and make a name for himself was to have his garden's fountain drained, scrubbed clean, and refilled with 250 gallons of brandy, 125 gallons of Malaga wine, 1,400 pounds of sugar, 2,500 lemons, 20 gallons of lime juice, and 5 pounds of nutmeg, aka homie made one very expensive and very big cocktail. Apparently the bartenders actually paddled around the fountain in a small wooden canoe, filling up the guests' cups and rotating out every 15 minutes so no one bartending would pass out from the fumes or become intoxicated. Although about 5,000 people attended the party, it took them 8 days to finish the cocktail, resulting in one long, drawn-out, and probably quite drunken celebration, and to date the world's largest cocktail ever made. His party carried on the entire time, with guests coming and going or some staying the entire duration and crashing in random spots until they could wake up and plow themselves with more liquor. This being England, when it inevitably rained, Russell was ready. He had a silk canopy erected to ensure the alcohol wasn't diluted. Heavens forbid. Legendary party number 7 is the delights of the Enchanted Island. From the 7th to 13th of May 1664, the famously unwashed Louis XIV held a party in honor of his mother Anne of Austria and his wife Queen Maria Teresa, based on the story of Alcuin the Magician. Well, that's a sweet and somewhat sci-fi notion. This raunchy party was actually a dedication to Louis's favored mistress, Louise de la Valliere. This elaborate garden party marked the beginning of Versailles' transformation transformation from Louis XIII's hunting lodge to Louis XIV's Palace of Glory. King Louis made the most of his new chateau by hosting a 7-day party here, and all the celebrations were based upon the magician's tale of soldiers being captured by the dangerous she-sorcerer of great beauty. Fitting the theme, Versailles was transformed into a mythical and enchanting fairyland. There were lavish costumes, new plays, dancing, ballet, music, fireworks, and a huge feast, and the entire garden at Versailles lit up with thousands of lights, all featured in the course of the celebrations, which were said to never be rivaled again by the kings of France. Legendary party number 6 is that of Manchu imperial feast, or more accurately how grilled ape, braised bear paw, bird's nest soup, and steamed camel hump came to symbolize unity. Now, there's plenty of debate if this event truly happened, but if it did, the story is a well-deserved title on this list, as it allegedly united the struggling Manchu and Han ethnic groups. The legendary 3-day banquet hosted by Emperor Kangxi for his 66th birthday is seen as the pinnacle of political eating. The factionalism between the Hans and the Manchu had reached a fever pitch, as positions traditionally held by the Manchu began to be taken over by the Han. In order to try and improve relations between the two groups, the emperor, a Manchu himself, decided his 66th birthday feast would marry together the group's different cuisines into one huge, remarkable feast, to prove that two things coming together doesn't lose their individuality, but rather creates one new and tasty thing. Northern Manchu had a communal meat gatherings, and Han cuisine on the other hand had a wide range of staple ingredients and a great variety of condiments. And opening dishes were soups of pork tendon and sea cucumber, crab and shark fin, and kelp. The second course included braised bear paw with carp tongues and gorilla lips with rice dregs. The final meat course brought grilled ape, porridge-fed suckling pig, and minced pigeon, before a dessert of dried fruit cinched the feast. There were so many courses that supposedly over the 3 days it took them to eat them all, they found neutral ground and began to embrace the process of making peace. Legendary party number 5 is the Field of Cloth of Gold. And to say that France and England haven't always gotten along would be a bit of an understatement, as they both spent the vast majority of their respective histories at war with each other, at the very least poking the bear. Even during the rare times of peace, the two countries struggled to get along, hampered by centuries-old rivalries. But when they try to get along, well, it's a carnival to say the least, and I mean it literally. The event held in 1520 for 17 days, from June 7th to 24th, was a carnival. It was a rare period of peace for the two kingdoms, and their respective kings, Henry VIII and Francis I, decided it was finally time to meet one another, and what better way than at a massive rager. Of course, in reality, it was a chance for the two young kings to try and outdo each other. The event took its name after the massive amount of expensive cloth both countries used to try and outshine each other. Quite literally outshine, as the material was all spun in the color gold. Huge tents were set up and housed huge banquets, jousting tournaments, parties, and sleeping. Over 216,000 gallons of wine were drank and 2,000 sheep eaten. The event was hugely expensive and turned out to be a waste of time, at least diplomatically speaking. Both kings had huge sensitive egos and were out of control during the event and made plenty of people uncomfortable. Legendary party number 4 is always happening inside of Nero's golden house. Name a Roman emperor who isn't Caligula and is as crazy or gluttonous as Nero. If you can't, it makes sense. He and his descendant does take the cake. Of all the various emperors, no one knew how to throw a party quite like Nero. He had the ultimate playboy mansion built in the center of Rome and called it Domus Aurea. It's estimated the estate itself was anywhere from 100 to 300 acres in size, reaching across the Palatine, Caerleon, and Esquiline hills. It featured an artificial lake, farmland, and vast gardens when Nero enjoyed having Christians burnt at the stake or elaborate garden parties. Take your pick. The exterior walls were golden plated while the interior was decorated with marble, ivory, and precious gems. It was here that Nero held his parties, few of which have any records due to the fact they happened pretty much every night. You missed out on what happened yesterday? Just show up today. But while Rome's great and good partied away the night with their emperor, the Roman people were starving. Apparently at these parties, the doors to his dining room were locked, and legend has it guests were only allowed to exit if they're gonna make themselves vomit in order to keep eating. During and after the feast, drunken group romps were held where it was said Nero would cover himself in the skin of a wild animal and ravage his guests like an untamed beast. No one was allowed to leave until Nero said the party was over. Legendary party number 3 is the end of Papal conclaves. Whenever a pope dies, a conclave is held and the various Catholic cardinals assemble to elect the next pope. I don't have to tell you that Italy is historically a very Catholic country with close ties to the Roman Catholic Church. This means that every time a pope dies, the entire country mourns, or is at least expected. When Pope Urban VIII died in 1644, the conclave following lasted from August 9th to September 15th of the same year, thanks to 2 specific cardinals who were incapable of agreeing on anything, bickering like an old married couple. In the end, it takes bribes from France and Spain to get the 2 men to agree for one new pope. Pope, he took the name Innocent X, which is ironic considering what happened next. The whole of Rome broke out into a party the likes of which had never been seen for centuries. People were doing some pretty un-Christian things out on the streets in celebration of the religious leader finally getting chosen, such as converting the famous La Fontana de Liana into a wine fountain. You heard me. Normally these lions spew water into huge vases beneath, but on the days after 1644 and farther down the line, the 1667 conclaves, the water was replaced with wine and given to partygoers free of charge. Thousands of people flocked to the area to dip their goblets in free wine and get merry. Legendary party number 2 is the Ball of Burning Men. This wasn't the initial name of the ball, but rather an event that occurred during its celebration that prompted a historical name change. See, this pompous party was held by the lovely yet very stressed out Isabeau of Bavaria, celebrating the remarriage of her best friend and lady-in-waiting. That's at least what she told everyone, including her husband Charles, when in reality the ball's intention was to distract the king, who had straight up lost his mind. The masquerade was held on the 28th of January 1393, and its centerpiece entertainment was that of a charivari, a dance performed by Charles and all of his knight friends who were dressed as wild men. To dress like a wild man, it involved some tar, some feathers, some rags, and a whole lot of attitude. The guests were supposed to guess who was hiding behind the wild man disguises. Due to the fact that pitch tar is highly flammable, candles and torches were banned from the dance room. However, the king's brother, Duc d'Orléans, never got the memo, or he did, and he threw it out, seeing as he was desperately trying to seize Charles the Mad's throne. He drunkenly stumbled into the room carrying a torch and either intentionally or accidentally lit one of the dancers on fire. His proximity to the other wild dancers meant that it was a tinderbox effect, and 4 of them burned to death. The French were outraged, seeing the party as a sign of royal decadence getting out of hand, and the entire court, including Charles and his drunken brother, were forced to offer penance for the debacle. Legendary party number 1 is the OG Oktoberfest. You know a party was really successful when it ended with everyone agreeing to do it over and over again in the following years, and the year after that, and the year after that, and the year after that again, apparently ongoing forever, since Oktoberfest still happens today, the only party on this list to truly stand the test of time. Oktoberfest as we know it today was originally held to celebrate the wedding of Bavarian Crown Prince Ludwig to Princess Tereza of Sachsen-Hildenburg-Hansen in Munich in 1810. Royal weddings are already considered grand affairs, but this made the rest look like a discount B-Day party at Chuck E. Cheese. For 5 days starting on October 12th, 40,000 people from across Bavaria came to Munich to party. More than 32,000 buns, 3,992 pounds of cheese, 900 pounds of mutton, and 13,000 pairs of sausages were devoured over the course of the party, not to mention 23,000 liters of beer. It took months of preparations as restaurants all jumped in and tried to outdo each other with increasingly extravagant menus, beers, and entertainment to lure in the visitors. The economy boomed, the royal couple hit the streets to interact with the people, and it was a raucous and drunken celebration that went on almost 24/7 for the first few days. In fact, it was such a legendary party that everyone agreed to do it again the following year. This time, however, it was done on an even bigger scale, lasting for 12 days instead of the original 5. Everyone loved it. Once again, everybody flocked in to celebrate the anniversary of the wedded royals, but only as an excuse to party German Bavarian style. Thus, the annual Oktoberfest, the world's largest beer festival, was born. Well, that's the end of another Bumblebee video. Take some time to subscribe to The Hive for more of our content, drop a like or comment below. I'll see you around.